Hello and welcome to the Horror of It All movie podcast. I'm Eric. I'm solo this time. This episode is going to be a bonus / companion episode to the last episode, which was episode 4, where me and Adam just talked about our favorite horror movies from the past 10 years, as well as many other things like favorite labels, like favorite stuff from Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome and Scream Factory and Severin, as well as I talked about my favorite albums of the past 10 years, as well as favorite albums of 2019. Now, the reason why I'm doing another one is because that one was just a loose one. We made no order. We made no top anything. But I wanted to do my top. And everybody's doing, like, and with reason, their top 10 of the past decade. That's not really me. I'm usually about more. And I know some people will be like, why, you can't narrow it down? You can't control yourself? Sure, I could. But I feel that it's more fun to do it this way. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run through each year in the past decade and do my top 5 from that particular year. But then when I get to 2019, I have a top 10-ish. I will have an honorable mention or so. But that's the reason for this podcast. So hopefully it goes well. First time I've ever done it by myself. I think it'll go okay. Adam will be on the next podcast where we will be talking about the return of the living dead. So, right to it. 2010, my top 5 movies from that year. And again, these are just movies. The last podcast we talked about our favorite horror movies overall, no particular order. These are my favorite movies overall, not just horror. Just wanted to make that clear. Okay. 2010, my top 5 is 5, The Other Guys. Love that movie, still watch it. It's hilarious. 4, Hot Tub Time Machine. Another fun one. It's funny. I like time travel stuff. It's just a cool movie. I really like it. 3, She's Out of My League. That might not be one that somebody would think, but I like Jake Baruchel, and that was a really good movie in my opinion. It was just a fun movie, and I know anybody listening to this podcast so far is like, wow, that's branching out. I thought this was a horror podcast. Again, another reason why this is a bonus companion episode. 2, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Me and Adam have talked about it, on previous episodes. It was one of Adam's top 5 favorite movies or horror movies of all time, and that one will be in our future too. We're not exactly sure how, but it may be a commentary. And number 1 of 2010 for me, back to the horror, I guess, with Hatchet 2. Love Adam Green. Again, me and Adam have talked about it on the podcast before, and we've gone into great lengths, so I won't go much into that. And of course, I love Kane Hodder. Okay, on to 2011. My top 5 for 2011 is 5, Hobo with a Shotgun. What a fucking mindfuck of a weird fucking movie, but man, it's fun. 4, a bit of a one that's under the radar, but Kane Hodder's in it, and he stars in it. It's a pretty good movie, I think, and I think it's underrated. If anybody can find it, check it out. Don't expect, like, this masterpiece, but it's a good movie. It's called Exit 33. Number 3, Hangover 2. I would have put Hangover, but Hangover didn't come out in the past 10 years, so it's Hangover 2. I love those movies. They're just fun to watch. Number 2, Scream 4. Not necessarily a favorite Scream of mine, but it was cool to get another Scream. Especially still with Wes Craven at the helm, a little bit before he unfortunately passed away. My number 1 from 2011, I am a huge nerd for these movies, is Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I was so excited when they started redoing these movies. I'm not necessarily huge on horror remakes, but I will check out any of them. But when it came to that, I was all for it because a lot of the old ones, the Mark Wahlberg one was good too, I think, but a lot of the older ones, as much as I love them, they were a sign of the times, and that was cool to finally get a today Planet of the Apes movie with today effects. So that was cool. Yes. So that was 2011. On to 2012. My top 5 for 2012 is 5, Silver Linings Playbook. Again, maybe one that you wouldn't expect, but I like all types of movies. Horror may be my favorite, but I like all types of movies. Bradley Cooper was great in it. Robert De Niro was great in it. It definitely was a great movie, and it definitely showed a realism about. It wasn't what the movie was about, but it definitely showed like the realness of the disease bipolar. Number 4, Sinister. When I first saw that movie, I saw it alone, and I was home alone, and I'm not usually creeped out by much, but that was definitely one that for some reason did that to me the first time I saw it. Still, I really like it. 3, Looper. Now that brings back to the time travel that I mentioned. Fun movie. Bruce Willis is in it, as well as oh man, I can't remember who else is in it. But yeah, it's a cool time travel movie. Bruce Willis is like the older version of the particular guy in the movie, as well as the younger version, I believe, if I'm saying it right, was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But man, that was a really, really cool movie in my opinion. And on to number 2. Number 2, American Reunion. I love all the American Pie movies. I love sex comedies, especially ones from the 80s like Porky's, and the list goes on from there, but that's not what this one's about. But my wife and I, it's some of our favorite movies to watch together. But American Reunion's definitely a good one. I'm not big on disgustingness. That's not funny to me, but there are some disgusting things in it. But yeah. My number 1, Django Unchained. Love that movie. I love that movie so much, and I love pretty much every Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm just a giant Quentin Tarantino fan, and I know some people, especially that like old movies, you can say what you will about him. He lifted this scene, he lifted that scene, but he's a genuine fan, and he surprises me still to this day when I hear him about movies that he's talking about. I'm like, wow, Quentin Tarantino's talking about Pieces, or, that's just an example, but big fan of Quentin Tarantino. I just look at it like, it's a modern day filmmaker. It's got a bit of a modern day feel, but it also has that old school feel that not a lot of directors have. And if you don't like him for whatever reason, that's fine. I love Quentin Tarantino. On to 2013. My top 5 is, I do have, before I do the top 5, an honorable mention. I am a big fan of the independent filmmaker Tom DeNucci. Over the years, I've become well known with him, and we're on a first name basis, and we don't really see each other much anymore, but we do talk often. But that year, he released a movie called Army of the Dead. Tony Todd's in it. Ironically, Sully Erna's in it. That's the singer of Godsmack. I know that might throw some people off, or maybe even people that won't want to see it because of it, but I think he does an alright job. And of course, Nick Principe's in it, and he's hilarious. He's not a menacing, like, psychopath. He's, well, like I said, he's funny. But I wanted to mention that. Okay, on to my top 5 of 2013. 5, Lords of Salem, another taboo filmmaker from today that some people don't like for whatever reason. I love Rob Zombie movies. I love that he's an old school director. I hear people's reasons, and they're their reasons, and everybody has their opinion. I personally am a big fan. And Lords of Salem was one of his movies that a lot of people didn't even like that movie, even when they're a fan of Rob Zombie. But what I liked about it is it was different for Rob Zombie, but it still felt like an older movie. It still had that like weird atmosphere to it. It had it was just an overall weird movie. To me, it even had atmosphere like an Italian movie would have atmosphere. That was definitely a really good one, in my opinion. 4, The Conjuring. I know it's definitely a big like Hollywood type horror movie, but I like the backstory. I love those things. I don't get into the politics like some people do. Like, oh, this isn't real, whatever. It's a movie. I take it with a grain of salt for what might be real and what might not be real. But I love those movies, and anything connected to it, I am a fan of as well in the Conjuring universe. 3. Back to those filmmakers that people aren't. Not everybody's too keen on, but Green Inferno, Eli Roth. I really love Green Inferno. It's his love letter to Italian cannibal movies, and he does an amazing job at it. It feels modern, but it also feels like one of those Italian cannibal movies, and I think he did a great job at it personally. And I'm a fan of him too. I pretty much like everything that he's put out. Cabin Fever is probably my favorite, but I really like that movie. 2, This Is the End. Oh my God, when that movie came out in 2013, I watched it so many times. I haven't watched it in a little while, but that movie is so much fun. There are so many people in it. Seth Rogen's in it, and Jake Baruchel's in it, and just the list goes on and on. I highly recommend if you haven't seen it and you like fun, fun movies, funny movies with anybody that I mentioned. Oh man, Jonah Hill's in it. The list goes on and on. It basically is about a group of friends that I think they're playing versions of them actual self at a Hollywood party, and when that party goes off, a big crater opens in outside, and it turns into the end of the world. And it's just a lot of them end up having to live in the house for a while together, and just it goes from there. And it's a fun movie. I love it. Number 1 for 2013, I got to get some Adam Sandler in there. Love Adam Sandler. Grown Ups 2. I personally like Grown Ups 2 better than Grown Ups 1. I know that might be a little different, but I think it's funnier. I just think it's a better movie. I love Grown Ups. I love pretty much all Adam Sandler movies, if not all Adam Sandler movies, but I like Grown Ups 2 more. That one I really don't think I have to go into, because I would think people would at least know about it. Okay, my top 5 for 2014 is a bit of a weird one, because these aren't your normal movies. A couple of them in there anyway. Super independent with this one to a degree, but again with this stupid, like, when I say stupid, I don't mean stupid like, oh my God, that's terrible. I mean stupid like fun stupid, like funny stupid. But I'm a giant Trailer Park Boys fan, and I don't care. But 2 different movies came out that year. My number 5 for 2014 is SwearNet the movie. That's when SwearNet, the website, got introduced. They made a whole movie about it, and they play themselves, not their Trailer Park Boys characters, but they play themselves who plays those characters. It's a fun movie. I continuously, to this day, watch it all the time. If I feel like I don't want to watch anything particular and I just want to watch something funny or have a few beers too, I throw that on. It's so wrong on so many levels, but it's so great, and I'm a giant fan, as I said, of Trailer Park Boys, but people that know me might have an idea of that, and it's worth saying a couple times. I subscribe to SwearNet. I watch the podcast every week. Yes, they have audio for free, but I want to watch it, as well as many other things on that website. Moving on. I could go on and on about that, but again, it's a horror podcast, so I'm gonna just go with this. Now, number 4 is Life After Beth. Life After Beth was definitely a very different take on a zombie movie. Basically, it's Aubrey Audrey Plaza's in it. And oh man, I'm trying to think what to like. It's a zombie, I guess. I guess the best way to say it is like a guy discovers that his girlfriend has returned from the dead, but his joy turns to horror as she slowly undergoes horrific transformations. That's basically the synapse on Google, but that's a good way. That's a not a bad way to describe it. John C. Reilly's in it, Molly Shannon's in it, Anna Kendrick's in it, Cheryl Hines is in it, Paul Reiser's even in it. But it's a funny movie, and the guy's just super broken up, and then his girlfriend comes back, but it's not exactly what he wanted, so to speak, is because she's a zombie, but she's not your normal zombie. She talks, she does this, but she's definitely decaying and things like that. I haven't watched that in a while, but that's a fun one, especially if you like zombies. Yeah, zombies. Okay, 3, Digging Up the Marrow, bringing back in some Adam Green. It's a shame that he hasn't been able to make a sequel to that as much as he wants to, because, well, may drive away some people for this podcast, but I'm completely on artist's side when it comes to this, because they don't get it. They think that it's okay to download things for free, and I completely am not on board with that. It's not true at all, especially for somebody like Adam Green. And people have asked him, when will you do a Digging Up the Marrow 2? And he said, I really can't, because so many people stole it, so it's hard for me to continue with that. Just if you like the artist, just support them. And his movies aren't even that expensive, and he's such a nice guy. Whenever he does conventions, he doesn't charge you anything for his autograph. I know if people don't know conventions and they're like, charge for an autograph, yes, some people make their living that way, especially older actors and directors that aren't working at the moment, and that's how they get their money. Adam Green does not charge for his autograph, and he's a great guy that does a lot of great things. That is not about the movie, but I wanted to put that in there. Digging Up the Marrow is kind of like I don't want to call it a found footage, because it's not, but it's more or less he's trying to do a documentary about these certain monsters, and it goes from there, and it's definitely a creepy one. Number 2 of 2014, back to Trailer Park Boys, Don't Legalize It. I believe that's the third movie in Canada on the movie. Things are starting to get to the point of marijuana is going to be legalized, and you would think for some of those guys that would think that would be a good idea. Ricky does not, because it's taking away basically what he does to a degree, and he wants to go and see to the courts that are making that decision to see if he can change it in any way. But there's definitely some good things that are filtered in through the show, like Bubbles gets a letter from his parents, which is cool. And if you know the show, he hasn't seen his parents since he was a little kid. And but yeah, that's a good one. Like I said, I believe it's the third movie of all the Trailer Park Boys movies. But yeah, I really like that one. Number 1 of 2014, we're back to Planet of the Apes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. What can I say about it except I love Planet of the Apes movies, and that's another great one. And if you're at all interested in things like that and haven't seen it, check out those movies for sure. If you like older movies, check out the older movies too. Don't expect today effects or anything, but they're still fun movies. On to 2015. My top 5 for 2015 is number 5, Final Girls. That is a fun, weird movie. It's kind of like a horror movie, but it's really a comedy. It's basically about this group of friends that go to the theater and they go to watch a movie, a horror movie, a slasher movie, and they end up getting sucked in to the movie. And they are in the 80s, and they have to figure out basically how to survive. One of my favorite funny guys, so to speak, is in it. Adam Devine's in it. That's one of the earlier, not really earlier things I saw, but it was a standout for me. But yeah, that's definitely a fun movie if you haven't seen it. If you like horror movies and you like comedy movies and you like them smashed up, that's pretty much what that movie is. Thomas Middleditch is also a smaller character in it, but it's an interesting one. It's a fun one. And on to number 4 for 2015, Deathgasm. I believe I mentioned this on the last podcast, so I won't go too much into it, but it's a horror movie, but I guess it's a little bit funny. But it's basically about these guys in this band, and they really like black metal and death metal and stuff, and they find this sheet music or whatever from this infamous like artist, but when they play it, it summons like the dead or whatever, and they have to fight it off. It's kind of like Trick or Treat from the 80s. It's kind of reminds me also of like a mix of that and like Evil Dead, and it's a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely you should check that out. Number 3, I can't say enough good things about this movie, and I don't want to go too far into it, but The Devil's Candy. Oh my God. If you haven't seen this movie from 2015 with Ethan Embry in it, he's one of my favorite actors, but God damn it, this is a good horror movie. I don't even want to go into it because I don't want to ruin anything. If you haven't seen this and you love horror movies, check out The Devil's Candy. Number 2, on to ones that you might not expect from me. Number 2, Straight Outta Compton. I just think I'm a metal guy, but I like all types of music, and I like old rap too. I don't mind it, but it's not really my thing. But it's a story of NWA. If you're not into that, if that doesn't sound appealing to you, you're probably not going to like it. But it's a really good biopic. Number 1, back to Quentin Tarantino, The Hateful Eight. Some people aren't into westerns. I get it. And the movie's really long, but I love this movie, and the finale of the movie is worth the entire movie. Excuse me. It's basically like just a whole whodunit for like 2.5 hours or however long it is. I don't even know because I love it so much it just kind of goes by. But if you haven't seen that, but you do like Quentin Tarantino and you don't mind Western type movies, great cast. It's Samuel L. Jackson's in it and Kurt Russell's in it. Man, there's just so many great ones in it. I highly recommend that one if you can get past the things that I just mentioned. And if it's hard for you to watch a really long movie, you can watch it in segments. They have broken it up into segments like a TV show, or a Netflix show, I should say, on Netflix. I've watched it that way. Personally, it takes me out of it a bit just because every like 40 whatever minutes credits roll, and I'm like, this is too weird for me. I'm used to it as a movie. Anyway, we are on to 2016. This one is a bit of a mix. Number 5, 10 Cloverfield Lane. We did talk about this on the last podcast, so I won't go too much into it. Definitely a great sequel. John Goodman is amazing in it. Number 4, Deadpool. Only superhero movie on my list. Doesn't mean I don't like superhero movies, but Ryan Reynolds is fucking hilarious, and that's all I have to say with that. Number 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. I liked the first one, but it was the first one that I genuinely love since, like, the ones for me for growing up, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of 89 and then Secret of the Ooze, or 89 or 90. I love those growing up, and I'm not saying this is like that caliber good. It's a today Ninja Turtles movie. My youngest son loves it. It's one of his favorite movies too, so I've seen it a lot. Number 2, back to Rob Zombie, 31. Maybe not another favorite. I fucking love that movie. It's so sadistic. It's so like, oh man, just if you like Rob Zombie and you haven't seen it, I know you're probably thinking you're going to see it anyway. Definitely check it out. I think it's great. Number 1, one that's on a lot of people's lists for the past 10 years, honestly, and I still tell people about this movie that they got to check it out, is Train to Busan. My number one of 2016 is Train to Busan. I'm not huge on infected movies, but when they're done good, they are done fucking awesome, like the 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later movies. But Train to Busan, I might even like more. It is a Korean movie, so I believe it's on some streaming services. You're only going to be able to watch it in Korean on those services. Granted, there's subtitles. If that doesn't bother you, cool. But if you like basically super kind of basically intense infected zombie movies, pick up the Blu-ray because it does have an English track on it. It's dubbed in English. Yeah, Train to Busan, number one, 2016. All right, I'm cruising right along here. It's a little interesting just doing it by myself, but I'm making it work. My top 5 for 2017. I'm almost done. Number 5, and yes, it's a little lower on here, but War of the Planet of the Apes. Loved the movie, but out of the 3, it would be my 3rd favorite. There's not really much I can say about it. It does. I can't even say much about it because I don't want to give it away. But if you like the other movies, you'll probably like this movie. Number 4, a fever dream of a mind fuck of a movie, Mother, with an exclamation point. Oh my God. Some people didn't like it because they either didn't get it or it was just too weird for them. I understand. I really do. But I enjoyed it. That's the best way I can describe it, is it's like a fever dream. I mean, there is descriptions online about it, but I mean, you can't really describe the movie. You just have to watch it. The best way to, all I can say is a fever dream. Jennifer Lawrence stars in it. It's just, you definitely, it's a weird one, but I love that movie. Number 3 for 2017, The Disaster Artist. I was looking forward to that movie. And it's, oh man, I don't know what to say about it that people don't already know. It's definitely, it seemed like a passion project for a lot of people. It was about, I can't remember how I haven't watched the movie in a little bit, but Tommy Wiseau, I can't pronounce his last name, but he directed and stars in the movie called The Room, which a lot of people considered, it was an infamous like worst movie ever type thing. And the movie is basically just about a true story about the filming of that movie. James Franco stars in it. Dave Franco's in it as well. Seth Rogen is in it. Oh man, it's got a great cast. Don't necessarily expect like your typical, because I said the people I said, like Seth Rogen and stuff like that. It's a genuinely good movie. It's funny, but it's also a drama and a true story. Number 2 of 2017, Get Out. Very close to being my number 1, but once I say my number 1, people get what I mean because it's me. That movie definitely is one of those claustrophobic movies where, to say the least, but I know a lot of people know about the movie and it's on a lot of people's lists, so I won't go too much into it, but I absolutely love that movie, and that came out of left field. I watched it just on a whim and blew me away. Number 1 for 2017, It. What else can I say? It's It. I love Pennywise. I love Stephen King. I thought they did an amazing job on that one. It's long, but it's worth it. It goes into each kid. It's just, I think it's great. But again, I won't go into that because people know about it, but it's my number 1 It of 2017. On to 2018. My 2018 has a couple of honorable mentions. I was able to keep it down with the other ones. I mentioned one earlier, but that was a hard year because there's a lot of movies I really loved. And in the honorable mentions, some might even be surprised by it. Wow, they're in your honorable mentions and you didn't switch them out? I had so much trouble with this, and I'm just going with it. my two honorable mentions are Summer of '84. That is close to being my favorite horror movie of that year. If not, it's just, I believe it's still on Shudder if people still want to check it out. But I really like that movie a lot. And believe it or not in my top 5, in my top 10, as well as Summer of '84, Halloween 2018 one. I really liked it. It's not necessarily one of my favorite Halloween movies. I'm a giant Halloween fan. I am partial to certain ones. I won't really get into those, but it was good. I'm excited for the new ones, and we'll just leave it at that. Number 5, this is the one that people are going to be like, those are in your honorable mentions, but this movie isn't. I had so much fun with this movie. Number 5, Ready Player One. May not be on many people's favorite list. I don't know. I don't care. There's so many little things in this movie that you can pick out. There's a whole Shining segment, not segment, but part. There's so many characters in it. At the end, it's you gotta pause it to look. You're like, oh my god, so much fun. I originally watched it with my wife and my 2 boys, and we had a blast. Number 4. The Nun. Again, may not be too many people's favorite. Weren't too into it. It's part of the Conjuring universe. The Nun fucking freaks the shit out of me. That's the main thing about it. That Nun, not too many things freak me out, but that Nun does, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And that movie is so creepy. It's so atmospheric. I love it. Number 3 for 2018, Bad Times at El Royale. There's not a whole lot, again, I can say about it. There's different segments of the movie. It kind of reminds me of a movie like an early Quentin Tarantino type movie. That might throw people off, but even if you don't like Quentin Tarantino, you might like this too. Jeff Bridges stars in it. I don't know if I mentioned that. He's one of the stars in it anyway. But it's a really great movie. I really like it. My number 2 and 1 are definitely throw-offs, but I don't care. Number 2, A Star Is Born. I don't care what people say about that, but I love that movie. That was such just a heartfelt, just great, fun / earth-shattering, sad, heartbreaking movie, but everybody involved was beyond amazing, and they deserve everything they got for awards and more. I saw that at the theater with my wife. It's just, we even love the soundtrack. I love that movie. I know, again, horror podcast, but hey, I warned you, this is a bonus episode, so it's not all about horror. Number 1, Bohemian Rhapsody. Huge Queen fan. I thought they did an amazing job on that movie. They're probably haters for that too. I don't care. Again, saw it with my wife. We had a blast. Number 1, 2018, Bohemian Rhapsody. Not much I can say about it. It's the story of, it's the story of Queen, but it's really about Freddie Mercury, I think. But definitely love that one. All right, so almost done here. I'm on to my 2019 top. I'm just going to say 12. I know I'm terrible, but it was 10, but especially number 11, I can't leave out. And I'm not even going to go into 12, but I'm going to say it. Number 12, Us. It's Jordan Peele's second movie. He did Get Out. I don't like it as much as Get Out, and it has grown on me more. It's a weird fucking movie, man. I don't think I really have much. I don't think I really have to say much about it. People know what I'm talking about. Number 11. It was so hard for me not to make this higher, but I was being honest with myself, and there's so many movies that I honestly like more. Vault. I mentioned Tom DeNucci earlier on. He is such a great filmmaker, and he made his biggest movie to date, his best movie to date. Oh, man. The film is a crime tale based on a true story taking place in 1975 in Providence, Rhode Island, his home area. It depicts about what would become one of the biggest heists in American history. It's just a great true story movie, which there was a lot of those this year, and quite a few of them on my list. But highly recommend that. If you don't know Tom DeNucci, check out his movies. He has a lot. He's an independent filmmaker, but a movie like Vault is gonna get him to that next level. I really believe it. Check it out. And there's other movies called Vault and The Vault. There's a 2017 movie called The Vault. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a movie called just simply Vault from Tom DeNucci. Came out this year in 2019. 2010, yeah. Number 10. Happy Death Day to You. Not a favorite of a lot of people, even people that were fans of the first one. I love it. I had fun with it. It's got time travel. Things are repeating again, like a horror Groundhog Day. This is a little bit more sci-fi. I had fun with it. Number 9 in my top 12 2019 movies. I know, 12. Number 9, Zombieland Double Tap. This one I got a little nervous with this one because me and my buddy Brian saw the first one in the theater together, and we always made a joke like, save the date for when we get it. My theater almost didn't get it. I live in a little town. We don't get everything, but they got it. They got it late, but we went, and it was a lot of fun. Number 8, not a favorite of a lot of people, man, but they gotta admit, and they do. Well, not gotta, but a lot of people admit certain things about it were good. Number 8, The Fanatic. John Travolta is not John Travolta in this movie. He completely loses himself into this character. He's never played a character like this. Devon Sawa is in it. He is a lunatic, but at the same time, he's really just trying to protect his son and his family. And John Travolta is this obsessed fan that initially just wanted an autograph, and he keeps trying, but he keeps breaking all these rules, and his character's really not all there. He's definitely a bit special, you know? And I'm not saying that in a mean way. He really just is. And I felt so on edge the entire time of that movie. Just some of the things John Travolta's character does that is like, oh my God, what are you doing? But he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand that this isn't okay. People tell him that it's not, and I think he has an idea, but you feel bad for him. At least I did. I thought The Fanatic was great. I loved it. If I'm one of the only people, oh well, I loved it. That's what matters. Number 7, really should be higher on my list, but again, there were so many good ones. The Irishman. I hear jokes about people still trying to get through it because it's so long. I don't have trouble with getting through long movies. I have to make a point to watch them. Took me a little bit, but I'm a giant fan of everybody involved in this movie. I mean, come on, Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci. Joe fucking Pesci is back in a movie? Come on. I know the movie's 3.5 hours. I know this, and I don't care. They used every single second, a minute of this movie to its fullest, and they did a great job. Some people might pick on a bit with the CG because they go through their ages and things like that, but I think they did a great job because obviously you can tell it's there, but it's good CG. It really is. I think they did a great job, and I'm a huge fan of all of them. Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies of all time. But yeah, 7, The Irishman. I know it's so low, but I couldn't help it. Number 6. This one, some people might be like, this is after Irishman? Yeah, I just saw it recently. Dolomite Is My Name. Had a blast with it. I'm familiar with what's his name, Rudy Ray Moore, with some of his comedy and the Dolomite movie and other things that he did. But man, that was a fun movie, and it's so good to have Eddie Murphy back. Like, not that he really went anywhere, but he does such a fucking good job on that, and it was so exciting to have Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live again. Come on. If somebody's fans of him and you didn't see that, find it. It's on YouTube. Just find it. I watched it when it was on, but it was so cool to have him back after, 30-something years. Granted, he went to, like, a anniversary show or whatever, but to be on the show, really. He does a great job. He knew Rudy Ray Moore. There's a really nice thing in the credits that says dedicated to Charlie Murphy. I thought that was bittersweet. He does such a great job. Um, Rudy Ray Moore's stuff was over the top and ridiculous, to say the least, and his albums are very dirty. Even the album covers are fucking dirty. But I, the it was just a great biopic. It really was, and again, great to have Eddie Murphy back. He just finished Coming to America 2. And there's other things on the horizon. He's plans on doing comedy again. I heard something about maybe a Beverly Hills Cop 4, so I'm excited. I'm geeking out. I'm fanboying out. I love Eddie Murphy. I loved his comedy. I love his movies. I love them all. Okay, back to the horror a bit. Number 5 in my top 12 2019 movies. 3 from Hell. Back to Rob Zombie. Don't give a fuck. This movie, I really like it. It's not necessarily a favorite of all of his movies, but if you like Devil's Rejects, you'll like 3 from Hell. That's what I gotta say. Some people think that it's too much like 3 from Hell, or it's not enough like 3 from Hell, but I try not to pick apart things as much as some people do, and some people can't help it. I just watched it for what it was, and I had a blast with it. Sid Haig's little monologue that he did, absolutely amazing. But if you're a fan of Rob Zombie and you haven't seen it, 3 from Hell, it's his new movie. Check it out. Number 4. This one might be a little controversial for a couple of reasons, but it's Lords of Chaos. And I say that, one, on a not as controversial, but some people might look it up and be like, wait a minute, that was 2018. If you look into the details, it was not released in America until 2019 when I saw it. It's the story of Mayhem, the band Mayhem, the black metal band Mayhem. Oh my god, it's an intense movie, to say the fucking least, man. If anybody knows the Arrow Video podcast and knows, I can't with Sam and Dan. I believe it's Dan who did the effects, or some of the effects on it. He did such an amazing job. Man, I can't say enough great things about the movie. It's definitely a movie you're not going to forget. It's unsettling. It's scary to a degree about how reality can be. And I know I just said reality because some people are like, that's not even the true story. You know what? They even say it. As a matter of fact, I have the Blu-ray right here, and there's even a line at the beginning of the movie. I'm not sure if it's on here, actually. Yeah, based on truth and lies. So, I know some things aren't true, but just watch the movie, man. If you can handle intense movies and can get past that, or you're not even a giant black metal fan or even metal fan, this is an intense fucking movie. But yeah, I had to say that. Dan Martin, that's what it was. I wanted to verify that to make sure I was right, but Dan Martin, he does the Arrow Video podcast, and he is a great effects guy. He was one of the effects people on the Lords of Chaos. Can't say enough great things about it. If you like horror, if you can handle intense shit, or even love intense shit, and you can get past that, oh, it's not 100% true, what movie really is? It's kind of like when some people are like, not really kind of like this, but it reminds me of a silliness where I don't like movies that aren't realistic. It's a movie. You're supposed to be there to have fun and lose yourself. It doesn't have to be realistic. Life is realistic. Let's have an escape. That's how I feel. Take it for what it is. I could do a whole podcast about Lords of Chaos. Sorry if I said Salem in there. As I was writing a couple times, I mixed up the Chaos and the Salem, but I mean Lords of Salem. Number 3. It Chapter 2. A lot of people say they don't think it's as good as the first one. I personally like the first one better too, but I kind of don't look at them as two separate things either. It's a great continuation. The kids are adults now, but they still have flashbacks to when they were kids. It's a huge thing. people probably know what I'm talking about if they care and if they like horror movies and Stephen King stuff. Stephen King has a cameo in it. But It Chapter 2, I saw in the movies 4 times. But man, I did the same thing with the first one. I'm a giant fan of those movies. All right. My last two are not horror movies. I know, terrible. Being a horror podcast, but as I said, 2, The Dirt. Before I saw my number one, The Dirt was number one. I'm a giant Motley Crue fan. That is one of the greatest biopics of all time. It's going to be my top 5 favorite biopics of all time of Motley Crue. It depicts so much of them, so many stories you've heard, so many things that you may not have heard. Everybody portrays their role amazingly, in my opinion. It's on Netflix. I really hope it's released physically someday, but Netflix isn't really good at that unless it's a TV show or a huge thing like Stranger Things. And I'm not knocking Stranger Things. I like Stranger Things. Not a fanboy or anything, but I like it. Anyway, but The Dirt, if you haven't seen it and you've heard about it, if you love Motley Crue, or if you like Motley Crue, it's a great fucking movie, man. Number 1. I've come to number 1. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I recommend this movie to people all the time. Still, like, not still, but I said that before with movies from years ago. But love Quentin Tarantino. Is an absolute great cast. It took me a little bit because of the holidays to get it on Blu-ray, but I'm so glad I got it on Blu-ray. I saw it at the movies a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, I can't remember. But oh my God, to me, it's a masterpiece, in my opinion. Some people get thrown off by certain things, but everybody's different, you know? And one thing I will say, without trying to give anything away in the movie, if you're a fan of Quentin Tarantino, you might have an idea of this anyway. For the things that you have heard about the movie, like the whole Manson family aspect of it and things like that, obviously the 2 main characters are fictional. There are other things in this movie woven in with the true things that are also fictional. So, without really wanting to say anything, expect the unexpected, I guess you would say. Fun fucking movie. I can't wait to watch it again. I haven't been able to again, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, such a great movie. I loved it so much. I don't really need to go into it, but hey, you know what? I'm going to read the synopsis on the case in case anybody isn't familiar with it, which maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood visits 1969 Los Angeles while everything is changing, as TV star Rick Dalton, who's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and his longtime stunt double Cliff Booth, who's played by Brad Pitt, make their way around an industry they hardly recognize anymore. The 9th film from writer-director features a large ensemble cast and multiple storylines in a tribute to the final moments of Hollywood's golden age. Whew, so great. And I love the slipcase too, because on the back of it is like a total 70s, like late 60s, 70s grindhousey type poster. But I don't really want to tell anything about the movie other than what I just said, or really go into it, but I love it. Absolutely my favorite movie of 2019. I know my list was much bigger than some people's, but I kind of had fun with it, you know? I went solo this time, but it's a bonus episode. I may do this again sometimes. It was fun. But anyway, thanks for whoever's listening. Like and subscribe, please. Especially subscribe, but like too. That helps. But get our subscribers up would be nice. I'll post it on other things. If you want to follow me on social media, you can find me at on Facebook at Eric Wirta, Wirta. I don't think I have a special name. I used to, but they really get on you about that because, oh, it's not your name or whatever. And I'm like, oh, come on. I'm also on Instagram. I think it's at Eric Wirta, but my main name is, Bear with me 1 second here. I'm just trying to bring it up because I wanted to start doing this. Sorry for the dead air. I'm trying. On Instagram, The Horror Guy 1983. It's all one word, but that's at Eric Werda. So either way, I think you can find it. And on Twitter, it is Eric the Horror Guy. I think I got those right. I might have reversed the two, but I'm new with that. But anyway, I hope people had fun. I know my list was overzealous to some people because some people just did top 10 of the past decade. I watch too many fucking movies and love too many movies just to narrow it down to that. I could, but I would be leaving so much out, as you heard. It was even kind of hard for me to do that, but I did it. Thanks for listening. As I said, like and subscribe. Adam will be back on the next episode where we will be talking about the return of the living dead. So yeah, this has been the Horror of It All movie podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time.